Is an agency really the state itself, or just a separate organization the state created? That difference matters because states can sometimes avoid being sued in another state's courts. In Galette v. New Jersey Transit Corporation, the Supreme Court said New Jersey Transit is not an arm of the state of New Jersey. That means NJ Transit does not get to share New Jersey's protection from being sued in the courts of another state. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote for a unanimous court. The justices pointed to how New Jersey set up NJ Transit as its own legal entity with the usual powers that corporations have. In legal language, a body corporate and politic. The court also noted that, under New Jersey law, the state is not formally on the hook for NJ Transit's debts or court judgments, and the state's control over NJ Transit didn't change the bottom line. The court affirmed the New York Court of Appeals and reversed the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, sending the cases back down. Stay with us, because the way a state designs an agency can change who can be sued, where, and who ends up paying. Nine Robes uses non-partisan, everyday language to focus on the facts of what the Supreme Court is saying. Here, you'll find clear, concise summaries of every Supreme Court opinion, stripped of legalese and clickbait headlines. Each post breaks down the facts, explains the court's reasoning, and highlights the crucial details that often go unnoticed. It's not just about what the court decided, it's about why those decisions matter, to give you a deeper understanding of the cases that define our nation's legal landscape. These summaries are generated by AI. Be careful and consult reputable sources when in doubt. 2 people were injured in separate accidents involving New Jersey Transit buses. One was struck by a bus in Manhattan, and another was hit when a bus collided with his car in Philadelphia. Both victims sued NJ Transit in their home state courts, one in New York, the other in Pennsylvania. NJ Transit asked both courts to dismiss the lawsuits. The transit agency argued it was legally an arm of the state of New Jersey and therefore protected by sovereign immunity, which generally prevents people from suing state governments. This created a problem. The New York Court of Appeals disagreed with NJ Transit's claim and allowed the lawsuit to proceed. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court agreed with NJ Transit and dismissed the case. The Supreme Court stepped in to resolve this conflict and establish clear rules for determining when a state-created entity qualifies as an arm of the state for immunity purposes. The court ruled unanimously that NJ Transit is not an arm of New Jersey and therefore cannot claim the state's sovereign immunity. The New York judgment was affirmed and the Pennsylvania judgment was reversed. NJ Transit's position rested on several grounds. First, the agency argued that formal corporate status should not be the deciding factor. What mattered was the state's intent and the entity's function. Second, NJ Transit argued it served essential governmental functions, specifically transportation infrastructure, while being heavily controlled and funded by New Jersey. Third, the agency pointed out that New Jersey's own characterization of NJ Transit as an instrumentality of the state should carry significant weight. Fourth, NJ Transit emphasized practical realities. The state provided between 15% and 46% of its operating budget over decades, demonstrating financial integration with the state. The victim's counterargument, supported by New York's highest court, emphasized formal legal structure. NJ Transit was incorporated as a body corporate and politic with traditional corporate powers, the right to sue and be sued, to contract and to acquire property. The state statute explicitly disclaimed liability for the corporation's debts. These formal characteristics, they argued, signaled a legally separate entity regardless of how much control the state exercised. At stake was a fundamental tension in administrative law. Can a state use corporate form as a strategic tool to shield itself from liability while maintaining operational control? Or does the choice of corporate form carry irrevocable legal consequences? Justice Sotomayor's opinion traced the court's entire history on this question back to 1824, establishing a clear framework for when an organization remains part of the state versus when it's legally separate. The key question is whether the state has created a truly independent legal entity. The court identified 3 main factors. First, legal structure. Is it set up as a corporation with standard corporate powers, like the ability to sue and be sued? This is the strongest evidence of independence, and states often deliberately choose this form to shield themselves from liability. Second, formal liability. Under state law, is the state legally responsible for the entity's debts? If the state is on the hook, it's more likely part of the government. Third, state control. While this matters somewhat, the court warned it's an unreliable indicator since states control many genuinely independent entities like cities and counties. Applying these factors to NJ Transit, the court found it was clearly independent. NJ Transit is legally structured as a corporation with full corporate powers. New Jersey's law explicitly states that NJ Transit's debts are not the state's debts. Although New Jersey has substantial control through appointments and board representation, state law simultaneously requires NJ Transit to operate independently. This combination of legal separation and formal non-liability outweighed the state's control, making NJ Transit legally distinct from New Jersey itself. The real sophistication in this opinion lies in what the court rejected and why. These rejections reveal what this case is fundamentally about. Most importantly, the court rejected the idea that how much a state funds an entity should determine its status. New Jersey's funding of NJ Transit varied wildly over 35 years, from 15 to 46% of the budget. Where would you draw the line? And it would be absurd if NJ Transit was part of the state in 2010, when funding was high, but not in 2015, when funding was lower. The relevant question is formal legal responsibility, not whether the state happens to pay its bills. 23 states urged the court to let states decide the issue simply by labeling an entity. If New Jersey calls NJ Transit an instrumentality of the state, case closed. The court refused because it would let states game the system. They could change an entity's status whenever convenient by rewriting their laws. Beyond that, NJ Transit's own statute used contradictory labels, calling it both an instrumentality and a body corporate, so even a label-based test wouldn't actually resolve uncertainty. Courts would still need to dig deeper. NJ Transit argued that operating transit systems is a core government responsibility, proving it should be part of the state. The court rejected this too. The problem is that essential is vague and subjective. Cities and counties perform essential functions but aren't arms of the state. The American Red Cross does essential work in disasters but has no sovereign immunity. The real question isn't whether an entity does something important. It's whether the state runs it directly or created it as a legally separate organization to do the job. Underlying all these rejections is a clearer principle. Sovereign immunity protects a state's control over its own budget decisions. If an entity is formally responsible for its own judgments, the money comes from that entity's budget, not the state's. The state can choose to bail it out afterward, but it hasn't automatically committed its treasury. That preserves what immunity is really meant to protect: the state's freedom to decide how to spend its resources. Find us online at 9robes.ai. That's the number 9robes.ai. Like and share this podcast with friends that like to be informed. 9 Robes provides AI summaries of U.S. Supreme Court cases. AI makes mistakes. People make mistakes too. We genuinely do our best to provide you with the most accurate summaries, but our best sometimes includes errors.